they'll sink up to your knees. So that's this application. You know, the cages are proposed primarily in the middle of the lease. Any bottom planting he's going to do, he proposes to do kind of along the edges. So, any comments or questions from the panel?
Were there any objections raised?
This has received no objections. The PD meeting with the town of Portsmouth and DEM raised little concerns. There was no objections received during the 30 days or after. So that, yeah.
Question. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm having trouble with my speaker. Water quality culverts coming off of that highway. Is this a seasonal area, or is it a small area that's open up in that area?
I believe the question was about water quality and the presence of a culvert near the highway there, or Route 24. I did talk to Cindy Hannes from DEM Water Quality about this site, given its proximity to the road, and I asked them if that was something that was taken into in consideration in the classification of this area as approved for the consumption of shellfish. And it is, you know, they do a shoreline survey through this area, and it is a potential point source that they've noted in their surveys in the past. They've never sampled it while it was actually actively discharging, because that only happens during rain events. That said, they gave me the history of the water quality testing in this area. Their sampling station is, you know, further south in the kind of in the middle of the cove. And they have another one very far south in the cove. And you know, this area meets the standards under the NSSP for approved waters for the consumption of shellfish. So I don't, you know, seeing that Office of Water Quality has no concerns about this, I don't think water quality here would be an issue. It's not not an active point source, I should say. And this area, though approved for, you know, harvest of shellfish, would be closed or could potentially be closed in an extreme rain event, much like we've seen recently. Roger? You're on mute, Roger.
Okay. Ben, what is the water depth at low tide in that cove?
It's at low tide, it can be fairly shallow in this particular area. Believe me, you know, 2 or 3 feet, I think, in places. It's was a potential concern that it is, given that it is shallow, that the gear type be, you know, suited for that depth. So the application proposes 2 types of cages, one being a bit higher for the deeper areas, and the other being like a tray, like a single layer, would be lower profile and probably be okay in the shallower areas. You know, we would want to see that gear would remain below the surface of the water at all times here.
Another question I have is the 2.0 per square meter. I thought it was 1.5. Is it too low, or is it 1.5 cohogs per square meter?
As the question is, what is the per square meter for this site?
Yes.
It was 2 square meter. 2 cohogs per square meter were found, based on the sampling pattern, which is on the slide there. So you can see on the right hand screen, on the right hand picture, those little squares are approximate locations of where the sampling was done. Yeah, in those areas. So based on the totals found there, is about the 2 point per square meter. There were a lot of, some of these sampling locations yielded no clams. I had a 1 or 2 and a few. Of note, I think I did find one undersized clam, but not a very high density of clams in this area.
And they never noticed any recreational clamming going on there?
No, not that I have seen or have heard reported. Though it is noted that nearby there is some areas of high intensity. And coincidentally, I was sampling wild quahogs for the Roger Williams University when I did this survey. So I actually went over closer to where the more recreational activity, shellfishing, happens to get some samples for the lab up there, and found, yeah, it was pretty good digging. So there was definitely a marked difference between the two areas.
Are there any other farms, aquaculture farms, leases in that area?
Yes, there is one, I believe, that's a couple hundred feet to the southwest. It's the McGee farm, and also another farm kind of directly south, the Sousa farm near the island. But total in that cove, I believe there are four farms currently.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
If there are no more comments, would any of the SAP panel members like to make a motion?
Katie, this is Mike. Has anybody contacted you about any concerns there? And is it 4 sites currently, and this will make 5 sites?
Yes, this would be the 5th site if approved.
And no, I haven't. No comments on. I haven't received any comment on this application.
Is this area? Do you know if this area is fished much commercially? I guess recreationally it is, but not commercially.
Not this. Where his site is, his proposed site. There's no. I never see any commercial fishing, and I haven't heard of any that goes on in that specific area. I think because I've always thought of it as like a really soupy mud and not really conducive to fishing, recreational or commercial. So not where he is picked.
Thank you. I guess one more question for Ben. Ben, do you know the size of the Long Neck Cove as far as acreage?
The size of that entire cove?
Yeah, I'm just kind of running ahead what 5 sites would look like in this area. I'm not that familiar with it, so I'm just wondering.
Oh, you're not. I was saying I could share my screen and show you the marine fisheries map, but I don't know if that would help you. If you
No,
don't have a screen.
I'm looking at the ones from what was sent out. I'm on the phone right now, so I'm not.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm looking at it's right, the pictures of it's right next to the road. You can see that.
Yeah, and it was intentionally, the site was chosen. I should say Jordan is here on the call, the applicant, if he wants to say some words. But he did choose this site, he expressed to me, because it is out of the way and close to the road. So, it's a fair amount of noise, and it's actually even a fair amount of litter that flows in from the roadway there. And Jordan said, if he had a farm there, of course, he'd be proactive in cleaning that up. But to give you, let me take a quick look here, see if I can give you an idea. So the approved area of the cove is about 235 acres. The southern part of that cove is restricted, and that's about 114 acres. So, and then what? So you're looking at 350 acres about. What's permitted there currently? You have 1.74 acre site under Curtis Jackson. You have a 1 acre site from Matt Griffin. Those are in the western end of the cove, kind of closer to where the pits are, gravel pits as they call them. The closest lease to this proposal is the McGee Farm. That's 2.43 acres. And then Sousa is 2.75 acres. So you only have about 7 acres currently under cultivation in this farm. This proposal would add another 2 acres for a total of 9 acres. And again, just the approved area is 235 acres. I should note that this is not a coastal pond where the 5% rule would apply. Those ponds are defined in the regulation, and this cove in Portsmouth is not included. My understanding is that it's actually because it's a man-made feature. It's not actually a naturally occurring cove. It was a gravel operation some time ago that flooded.
So approximately 9 acres, if this happens out of 250, that's open waters there.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you, Ben. That was very helpful.
Oh, anytime.
John McDonald, do you have any comment on this site location or anything about it? Chad?
No, I don't have a problem where the site is. I'm obviously familiar with it, but yeah, I do have concerns after a certain point how many they could put in there. That sounds like a lot of acreage, 230 acres, but it's not really that big in there. There's there's not a lot of room to move around, and I'm sure there's more kayakers and small runabouts and stuff that go through there, recreationally and stuff, but there isn't really much use for that area, as like you said, for clamming or cog, and in that corner. I can honestly say that. You can see it at low tide when you drive by there. It's very little water, and it is muddy. So, but when you get back into the entrance over there, there's more, there's a little bit deeper, and there's a little bit more activity there. So I think it's a good spot where it is. But going forward, I just kind of have concerns about how many you can put in a certain area.
I agree, John. That's a fair point. I don't know if you could really squeeze in another farm in this, given what I know of this body of water. This might be one of the few places where something might work out. Because if you get closer to the Gull Cove recreational area, you're certainly going to have too many conflicts. And anything in the gravel pits, I think the resource is too high in there to justify a pond. And then you run into the prohibited water line is really just south of that island in the middle.
Right.
And so that's all, that's a no-go area. And in the center of the cove is where I think a lot of the boating, a lot of sailing goes on.
Right.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. I go by it a lot, see what's going on, and in that area there really isn't any use of any sort going on there. So, but just going forward, definitely not the pits. There's guys that work in the pits all the time. So I think it's fine for this one, but going forward, I'd keep a close eye on it.
Katie, can we make a motion to not object to this lease, but have concerns about future leases in this area?
I think we can, if you'd like to put that in the motion. I think maybe we should just make the motion to not object, and then maybe have I don't know, what do you think? Do you think we should add that point to it, or do you think just having the motion to not object and then have like a side note, that way it's kind of noted?
It'll be reflected in the minutes, and the meeting recorded, and this will be up online, so all of this will be on record. So I would say that there's no need to add that into the motion, since if it was rejected, then it would be moving to the council, but you know, that being noted in the minutes should be sufficient.
I mean, we're going to talk about kind of, you know, application review procedures at the end of the meeting, and you will be notified early of any application if, you know, as you'll see when we have that conversation. So certainly we'll note that in my, you know, mental note for myself if we see more applications for this area that the SAP has particular concern.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate that, because that's the concern. You know, Dave Butel was here and he'd raised concerns, and I'd always say if we didn't have it in writing, it didn't happen. So if other SAP members think by putting it in the minutes, that's enough to show that we had concerns, I can just go with the motion to not object.
So just to be clear, it will be in the minutes, which are posted online, and it'll also be in the recorded version of this meeting, which will also be posted online. So it's all publicly accessible and on record.
How do other SAP members feel about the motion?
I just wonder if it's enough to, you know, let people, I know it's public and all that, but to make people realize that there is a concern about it, you know, right away when they start to look into it, you know. They might not look at this meeting or, you know, something else. That's my opinion.
Okay, maybe just repeat the motion, Mike, and then if we have a second, then that'll be the motion as written.
Well, just to follow up with John, and that's why I mentioned the caveat to the motion. I just wonder if having it in the minutes is enough to raise it to the level so future applicants can view that, or Ben can use that as a rationale for maybe asking somebody to move somewhere else. The original motion was to not object to this lease, but to raise concerns about future leases in this area.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay.
John McDonald.
Okay, and
Let me just write up the motion then quickly. Can you just repeat what would you want me to say for the second part of the motion, Mike?
The SAP panel had concerns about future leases in this area as far as the numbers. That wasn't very good.
All right, anyone want to, does that sound good? The SAP has concerns about the number of aquaculture leases within Long Neck Cove and would caution against additional leases.
Sounds good.
okay, I will call the vote. And sorry if you guys can still hear me. I'm on my phone and I just had something came up. I'll go to a roll call vote. If I missed anyone, just unmute yourself and say your name. But I'll start with John McDonald,
Yay.
Dave G,
Yay.
Ed Triano,
Yay.
Jeff Gardner,
Yay.
Roger Teller,
Yay.
Mike McGivney,
Yes.
Jerry Shy,
Yes.
and is there anyone else that I may have missed?
Yeah, I just joined, but I saw this whole thing, so I'll vote yay.
Okay, Kenny Mergo, we have a yay. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously with 8 yays to not object.
Okay, so moving on to the next application, I'll hand it back over to Ben.
Okay. So this is a proposed expansion of existing lease in Dutch Island Harbor. This lease is very close to the Jamestown Brook, which empties out just to the south of the existing lease. The applicants proposed moving or expanding towards the shore, about half an acre, a little more than half an acre. During the PD of this application, the preliminary review, we noted that we wouldn't want this lease to be ever in the intertidal area, and that was a particular concern of CRMC. So as you can see, the applicant kind of reworked the original proposal. The blue box was the original, and then the hashed area is kind of what we worked out as closest to kind of the mean low water. This area was sampled at low tide, pretty good low tide, using a hand rake. So it's a little different than the way we've done surveys in the past, given this is so close to shore. And there is access to this beach from the Jamestown water plant. There's a trail that goes down. I went down there with a rake, and I did eight pulls of a recreational rake along a transect line. And you can see my lines there across the lease, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the approximate locations of where we did the samples. I was not expecting to find a high density of quahogs in this area. Previous surveys that I went back and referenced and looked at, found fairly low concentrations of quahogs in the deeper water that most of these leases are in. So this is the first time that I think anyone had sampled kind of close to shore in the Dutch Highland Harbor area. And you can see from my transect results of the survey there that I found quite a few quahogs that ended up averaging out to about 6.4 per square meter. And in addition to those, included in those findings were about 3 undersized clams, quahogs. And I also did find a few oysters here and there, which presumably had washed off the lease. So the proposal to use this area was for bottom planting only. So there's no gear involved. However, it would, it would take this area essentially out of access, the access for recreational shell fishing. There wouldn't really be any other impact other than that, because you just have naturally planted shellfish there. However, it was a fairly high density of quahogs found. Now, as I mentioned before, the bay average is 2.8. CRMC is often reluctant to endorse an application if if we find cohog densities higher than that. There are very few exceptions to that in the record that I can find, from other applications. Only one was approved, I think, above that average. I think it was about 4 point something, and that was in Quanticottag. And the reason why that was approved with a high density of cohogs was because it was a seasonally used area. It was only for winter storage. So the logic there was, well, during the summer months, there would be no gear there, and people could shellfish there if they wanted to. It'd be less likely people would want to recreationally shellfish there in the winter. But this site would be a year-round exclusion from recreational shellfishing. I did not receive any objections to this application during the 30-day period. DEM and Army Corps have all signed off on this as being kind of a minimal impact. So that was before this survey was done. After the 30 days, I did receive one objection from a nearby landowner who owns the Hotchkiss Farm. It's an agricultural enterprise that it actually owns the land around Jamestown Brook there. The rest of it is state owned. But he did in his letter of objection cite concerns about recreational shell fishing. He says that he is a recreational shell fisherman himself, and he was proposing that buffers should be left around these leases between the shoreline and in the near shore area where recreational shell fishing occurs. This is not a policy of CRMC to have a minimum buffer. However, we have established buffers through review processes before for particular applications. So, at this stage, the applicants, I think they still want to move forward with this application. I think CRMC has some reservations about it. It is not on the recreational shell fishing layer of the DEM marine fisheries map, but there does seem to be at least some recreational activity that occurs here. The public does regularly access this beach. I've been down there a number of times in addition to the survey, and have always seen people beach combing or walking around. I've not seen anyone recreationally shell fishing, though I have heard anecdotally that it does happen from the objector and from other members of the community. Any questions or comments? And I could also, would like to give the applicants an opportunity to speak if they'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, on the access through the water plant, that's maybe allowed for CRMC, but it's not allowed for the general public. And you do have to cross across private land to get to a site, unless you walk down the beach a few miles back. And also I have a question. Now, where you found these, I see this on this map, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where was the biggest cut? Can you tell me where you got the cohogs and how many? Like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5.
If you look at the image there, it says transect 1 is the first line. That corresponds to the numeral 1 silver line across the. So there were 5 cohogs found across that line. There were 8 found across the second line. 7 found across the third line. 6 found across the fourth line, and 6 on the fifth transect line.
Okay, and they were all fairly large from the picture that I saw from you, right? Did you get any count size cohogs there or anything?
Yeah, there were. It was a good mix of tops, cherries, and some counts. And as I mentioned, I found at least 3 undersized oysters that fit through the bars of my my rake. Yeah.
3 undersized oysters or clams?
Clams.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So really, that's spread out pretty good. I understand the math as far as what you're talking about, 2.8.
Yeah. So I would say
cohogs.
most of those quahogs were found not closest to the shore, but a bit back, away from the shore, and there appears to be something in the profile of the beach there where it kind of transitions from more of a smooth sand to a cobbly kind of rocky sandy mix, and that's where there were a couple on some of those transect lines. I pulled the rake 8 times for 16 inches approximately, based on what I had figured with a step back, kind of as you would traditionally pull a rake. And there were pockets in there where I found 5 quahogs in a pull, and then there'd be many where I didn't find any at all. So it's definitely it was spotty, but there were pockets of high concentration that led to an overall high average.
Okay, so throughout that whole area, would you say you found 35 quahogs? Am I right, somewhere in that area?
27. Yeah, about 32.
Oh, 32. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that. If anybody else wants to speak.
And just for the, I brought, I had a Peck recreational basket with me. It was almost full. It was about that volume of clams.
A peck? When you say a peck, so a small, tiny basket was almost
small
full.
clam
I don't know, what's
basket.
the size of a peck basket?
It's.
Can you give me the dimensions on a peck basket, please?
I believe they're defined in. I believe that's the. It's a volume of measure. It's a galvanized steel small basket. It's your small clamming basket.
Right. So 32 quahogs almost fill that basket. So they were pretty big quahogs.
There was a mix of sizes. I had shared pictures with you, I believe, so you could see the sizes there. Yeah.
I didn't see them all in the basket at the same time, so I didn't know what. But what I did see was pretty large quahogs there. Not a lot of small quahogs is what I saw in the pictures. But just reason why I bring it up, it's as a commercial quahogger for many years. It doesn't seem like it's a commercially viable area to me, anyways. But that's up to the SAP guys to.
I wouldn't say it's an area I'd want to pull a bull rake through, given all the rocks and everything.
Right, and really, the south side where 1 and 2 and 3 yards are extremely hard bottom. That's why probably. I mean, we're in there all the time, and Joe still commercially fishes, and if we could commercial fish there, believe me, we would have. But I haven't. We don't find many quahogs there whatsoever. But just like I said, I don't think it's a very commercial viable area. Just to let these guys know. But thank you.
Oh yeah, so Joe Pinero, is it alright if I say something?
Yeah, this is Mike McGivney. We represent both the recreational and the commercial fishermen. This is a high density. We've never approved a density this high. So I make a motion to to object to this lease area. I mean, there's rooms for expansion for him to go other areas, but I think along the shore, I think is problematic, especially, recreational areas are tough to come by now. So I make a motion to object.
Can I jump in on that, please? This, as far as commercial, I mean, and recreational, we've got very little recreational there. As I said, it's not a good area for people to go out there and dig. People come in, we see them come in, try, they walk away. We spend a lot of time there. I wouldn't want to move in on anything recreational or anything like that. It's a hard place to access. Ben came in through the pond there. You're not allowed. There's a sign right on the gate that says no trespassing. Where he came in, it's water utility access only. It says right on the gate. If anybody's familiar with the area, you can walk for about 2 miles along the shoreline where there's tons of calls. You come in through the creek. That's where all the recreational people go. We've been we've been bottom planting there, and it's the reason why we want to expand in. So it's viable for us where we can plant and actually, it would actually make the area around it that much better. I mean, we've already planted millions of oysters and tens of thousands of clams in the area that we're using now. And this would just make it that much better for us.
I've
I mean,
had
we're
this
not
thing.
trying to interfere in anybody's recreation. Sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
No, I have a comment. Unfortunately, this is going to set precedents. If they allow you to, expand your lease in an area where there's shellfish, somebody could use this as an example to get their lease expanded in areas where there is shellfish, regardless of the availability to recreational fishermen, because anybody can get there from a kayak or a boat. There's other places where they have access recreational, where they go in by kayak and boat along the islands and stuff where there isn't any direct access. But I'm afraid that this is going to set precedents, and that's why I second Mike's motion.
Can I speak to that? Kayaking, yes, they can come in. Boat, it's a conservation area. You're not allowed to anchor there unless, you drive up on the beach and park your boat there. If you drop your anchor, you'll be subject to removal or a fine. So just to let everybody know on that too, where it's very restricted. Even we can't anchor outside of our lease. So there's a ton of cohogs all along that whole area there. I mean, for this concentration, and like I said, spread out. That's spread out to a whole half acre of area where you found 35 cohogs. It's not a viable recreational area. I mean, that concentration seems to be concentrated into one small area where you might be able to get a few cohogs, but it's not, I plead with you guys. I mean, we're not trying to interrupt anybody's recreational area. I mean, I work the pits, I've worked the bay. I mean, it's not viable. I mean, anywhere in the pits you could go, you can go grab as many cohogs as you need for recreational. But this area here is not viable. It's not viable commercially, absolutely, and it's not viable recreationally. It will be in the future if you guys let us do what we want to do. There'll be clams all around that whole area. Everybody knows if you plant one clam, that thing's going to produce many more clams. We plan on donating our time and money where you're going to have plenty of stuff that's going to just grow crazy around there. It's already happening with the oysters. I mean, people come over, they go to that site, and they're picking up oysters that are washing off our farm into there. Like I said, we've planted millions of them in our farm. They're washing off in there. They're taking the small stuff, they're taking whatever. And I don't mind. I tell everybody, if you take it's a season, you want to take the 3-inch oysters, it's all legal. Go right ahead. But I warn them to be careful if they're taking undersized because it's illegal. We all know that. So, I mean, but what we've done, we've been there for a little over 6 years. We planted millions, literally millions. I have paperwork to prove it, of oysters and tens of thousands of cohogs in that area. We're helping the area. We're not hurting the area. It's a total bottom planting. They can go right on the line and pick up whatever they want. We're only expanding out another 40 feet from where we are along the whole farm. It's just basically, it's a buffer for what we will be losing off of our area, and whatever goes on the outside of that, everybody's welcome to come down and get it. And we're putting these things in there. We're spending thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Actually, we'll go to hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. We just making this area great. We're making a habitat. It's a reef, just like DEM does. They put these reefs out there. Why do they do it? They put them in shallow water. It's helping the area. You're not allowed to dig the ones that are there that DEM is putting in there, but you're allowed to take what's on the outskirts of it. In fact, we're on a restoration project right now in Bissell Cove. you can plant within that area and you can't fish that area, but the stuff that grows around it is phenomenal. And we're just trying to contribute. Well, don't get me wrong, we try to make money, but we're also contributing to the industry. Like I said, I call hog since 1975, my first license I got, and I call hogged out of Riverside. And I fished the whole bay.
No, we don't, but the thing is, you're missing my point. Anybody can use this as a reference when they want to go on the beach or they want to get closer or expand where there's shellfish, shellfish already there. It's got nothing to do with yours. We appreciate it. I'm sure the recreational people in that area appreciate it, but we just can't have this happen again in an area where people have access, because they can say we allowed you to do it and then we didn't allow them to do it. So that's basically where I'm coming from. It's got nothing to do with your lease or whatever. It could be like everything's a dead end, but it's still, it's going to set precedents in the future. That's why we have to be careful.
Hi, this is Joe. Can I butt in real quick? I haven't had a chance yet. Hello?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I didn't know if you could hear me. All right. So, you guys have that 3 call hog rule where usually if you find anything under 3, you don't object. I've watched all the meetings, I'm well versed with how this works. Now, so you found 6.8 call hogs, average, supposedly one guy found this many. I've been there hundreds of times. I haven't even found that many call hogs. I haven't found 30 call hogs there, but my point is that you don't have to object just because there's over 3 call hogs per square meter. This is in Jamestown. There's really no commercial rakers in Jamestown. You heard from Ben, you can't really bull rake in the area. It's on a slope. There's rocks. The tide isn't that great, not being in the channel over there. We got no objections from recreational diggers, except for one that we just got like last week. He didn't even really say they dug on the site. He was just looking for a buffer zone, which we do have a buffer zone already, so I'm not even sure what the real objection's all about. But you guys got to weigh in all the factors, not just the fact that there's one study that says there was a few call hogs found. Like I said, there's hundreds of acres in Jamestown and nobody objected to it. This isn't a spot known for recreational digging. It never has been. This helps our business, and it's going to help, restore the area, like my dad said, a lot more than, what it's going to take away from somebody. Exponentially, it's going to produce a lot more than, what it could ever take away from anybody. So, I hope you guys consider all the factors. Thanks.
Okay, see if I can throw one out there. The objection, the problem that I have is the precedent being set with it being so close to the shoreline. Cobble is a great place for baby shellfish to grow. I would imagine that's why Ben was able to find so many, was because he moved the cobble out of the way, which recreational people are willing to do on a sunny day and find clams. But I'm really concerned that it's too close to a shoreline, too close to where it is an isolated area, I'll give you that. But it's, 50 feet, 30 feet from the shoreline. I thought that CRMC guidelines were going further and further back from shorelines, not accessible shoreline with kayaks.
Hi. Yeah, again, we went with the guidelines at CRMC. We actually started out at the mean low tide, and we got a recommendation from CRMC that they usually go with a buffer of 25 feet, what they recommended. There's a lot of other, like go to the ponds and whatnot. It's pretty common practice that these are pretty close to the shore. I think there's actually one that's being looked at right now that you guys actually approved, that's just as far from the shore. I think he actually moved it to like 10 feet from the shore. Like I said, that was approved by you guys as well, so.
Was there shellfish there? I don't think there was this many shellfish that close to shore there. We've never had one. I don't think we've ever approved one that had this much shellfish with Ben's study or the guy before him study. Sorry, I couldn't take the name quick.
You know, we appreciate that, like, you know, anything under 3, you guys basically just don't object to. But like I said, you found 35 cogs in this area. It's like, it's not like it's gonna throw the whole game off over here. I mean, you guys are, you know, supposed to weigh if this is gonna exploit the fisheries. I mean, I really don't see it. I mean, it's up to you guys, but, you know, that's my opinion.
Just worried about the next guy because you're worried. You just mentioned another aquaculture lease that we approved it on, and that's the precedence that I'm worried about, because you have shellfish and they're going to say we approved yours. Why can't we approve theirs? It's got nothing to do with your operation right now. It's got to do with Ben being a good shellfish extractor.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody objected to it though. That's the thing. I mean, like, no recreation people objected to this in the first place.
I don't know. Are you missing my point? My point has got nothing to do with your place. It's got nothing to do with your place. It's got to do with the next one. That's what we have to consider. That's all we're considering now is the next one that says we had 6. And what if the next one, the guy has 8 or 9? You know what I mean? And he says, well, it's only a couple more. That's my concern only. I don't want to just belabor it, but I think you're missing what my objection was.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's like, I mean, if that concentration was throughout like a 6-7 acre lease, that's all sandy and easy to dig and whatnot, you know, I can see why you would say that. Yeah, that's a lot. But, you know, it's a little rocky, little half an acre beach patch that, you know, they found a couple of cogs on. I mean, you just weigh, I'm just asking that you weigh in like every, you know, all the aspects rather than just, you know, we found 6.5 cogs per square meter. You know, that's it. Shut these guys down. You know, seems a little drastic, but.
I want to let the panel know that I was able to pull up the pictures of those clams if you wanted to see them. Not necessary, but I can share my screen if you want.
Okay, any more comments from the panel or anyone else have anything to add?
I do. I just have one thing to say. I think the size thing is really irrelevant. You know, when you think about recreational guys that are harvesting, and you know, when I see them close to my place all the time, they walk up the beach, they have half a peck of hogs. They're tickled pink because they're going to make chowder. You know, it's not always that they're looking at, okay, we need choice necks or tops or whatever. So the size thing is really, really irrelevant as far as, you know, okay, they're not little necks per se, but the concentration is very high. And I agree with Mike. I don't ever remember, you know, anything passing through more than 4. And, you know, you could say, well, 35 clams isn't very much. Well, for a commercial guy, yeah, you're right. But for a recreationalist or a person that's just going out poking along the beach, you know, that can be a, you know, that's their day, so to speak.
Yeah, when I brought that up with the size, I was under the impression that SAP was representing the commercial fishermen. As far as the recreational fishermen, I thought, well, Pastor, he comments on every one, and he actually commented on ours that he had no problem with it whatsoever. So I thought he represented it. I'm sorry if I was mistaken. The size doesn't matter for recreational, you're right. But there is a big area there that's great for recreational fishing. Ours is like the least desirable area in that probably 6 miles of beach line they have available there. And the access there would be good by kayak if you want to kayak for a half a mile or probably a mile from the Zeke's Creek. And that would be about it, as good as it gets. But as far as boats pulling in there and anchoring up, it's not allowed in that area. But it is allowed north of that area where there's tons of recreational opportunities. We're not a very desirable area. And I understand that, I do understand what we're saying about a precedent being set with letting us have this area with the concentration that Ben came up with, but it's could also be taken into consideration in future applications where you could, weigh in where you are. I mean, if you're on the side of Route 24 where you can walk right up and start digging, that's fine. I mean, that's great. I've dug there many a times. I worked in the pits. I worked for Cardi Corp for 20 years. I took care of those pits. I had those pits cleaned. I know it's a concentration of papers again there, but anything that was Cardi property, I made sure I took care of. And I saw what was going on in there. And it's a very easily area to get through. There's paths. I used to cut the paths for the guys to pull off the side of the highway right after the plant, heading north on 24. And it was a very easy spot to get to. This is not an easy spot to get to. And I think that you guys could probably consider that, and whether you object to this or not. We've had good success with this application. More of our applications, we've gotten several complaints on and objections for mostly everything else that we did. And this one application, we got zero. We actually got a good comment from, I forgot his first name, Mr. Pastor, and that's very rare. If you read, I'm sure you guys read all the applications. He objects to every application, everyone that I've ever seen. And he actually commented that he had no problem with this area whatsoever. And like I said, hopefully you can take that into consideration and with the future applications, make it clear that you're in an area where it's accessible. We let this area in because it's miles and acres. The one guy that objected, the farmer, he wants a buffer. His house is 45 acres from our site. And that's the one objection that we got. And he wants a buffer. I mean, that'd be, you want to go out there and pull your bull rake. You got one guy on the beach that says, hey, I don't like the way that guy, hangs around in front of my house and he's digging, but, do you take that into consideration? No, you don't. You say, hey, you know what? We need to make a living, and that's all we're trying to do. And I definitely understand, where you guys stand on this. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not arguing that point, but I'm just, as I just said, I think that, you could quite possibly take into consideration what we're doing. We're trying to make a living. I said, I pull a rake, I lobstered, I drag, everything else in this area. You know what, this place, before we started this project here in Dutch Harbor, it was a virtual desert out there. There was nothing out there. Not cohogs, not lobsters, no fish, no nothing. We put all this equipment in there, and we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it, and it's benefited the area. If you go on our Facebook page, Sunset Beach Aquaculture, you'll see videotape of the bottom over there and what is happening with the bottom over there. And besides that, we've contributed time to free time. We volunteer our resources over there all the time. We have people that come down with Sea Grant, CRMC, DEM, the town of Jamestown, and the general public. Everything's free. We contribute a lot to this industry, and we'd like to contribute more. And like I said, we put these millions of our oysters can reproduce. Whatever the hell they are now, just offhand, but we planted 500,000 oysters on the bottom there that can seed. We could have gone the other route for a couple of dollars more, and then all we do is get the meat. We're contributing. And like I said, if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see what we have. We have crowds of people there. Nobody's paid a dime. We contribute oysters, we feed them, we give them lessons, free. We're trying to help this stuff out, to get, shot down because you found 35 cohogs on a half acre. And, it just doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't. And I hope you guys take that into consideration. Thank you.
Your application to stay the distance from the shoreline as your existing application go south a little bit instead of going right over that cobble right there. You stretch your acreage down to the south or even out into deeper water. What is the need to go that close to the shoreline?
Well, we bottom plant, Jeff. We bottom plant, so for us to move out, we'd have to add more gear, which everybody's against. We use low profile gear there. It's tough enough as it is. We don't use the large floats. And going out is, we'd just be intruding more into the area out there that people are already complaining about. As far as heading south, it's a sandbar to the south. And it becomes exposed on a moon low tide. And we wouldn't be allowed. CRMC wouldn't allow us. We've actually moved the site upon CRMC's request further north. Our original application was 100 feet south of where we are now, which is Dave asked us to move it north 100 feet. We moved it 100, and then we found that we were still getting a little bit of dry in the corner, and we moved a little bit further north, and CRMC was all good with that. This area we're proposing stays wet. We're 30 feet as DEM only requires 25 feet or recommends 25 feet. We've gone to 30 feet, and we're trying to work with everybody in the best possible way. I know you grow bottom too. It's a hard bottom. It doesn't, and the bull rakers know. If it's so hard, we used to call it cement bottom. You put your rake in it, and Rocky Point, you'd get some in the cement bottom. That was such a high concentration area, which that area, according to the marine fisheries, has less of a concentration supposedly than we do, and that doesn't make sense to me. Anybody's welcome to go over there and pull your rake through before the meeting, and I'll guarantee you're not going to like it. The recreational guys aren't going to like it. Recreational guys get them, most of the recreational guys, not all, but they're getting them where it's easy and you can get a lot of them. They don't want to go poking around. When they walk over millions of call hogs that come over to our site and pull through the gravel and pull through the sand, they just don't do it. It's just, I bull rake for years, and I don't want to pull a tiny rake through that area. I don't. It's just, if you're a diver, you might poke in and get a few, but you're going to walk right over them. You go right outside of the creek over there, Great Creek. They call it Zeke's Creek. Right on that the northern point of the creek, there's tons of call hogs out there. Tons of them. People don't go out to our farm. They stop right there and they dig them right there. Commercial guys, you get a couple of them, Jamestowners. They don't come up to our site. They walk by, they stick the rake in, and they walk away. It's just not a viable area for recreational or for commercial. And I think we should take this into consideration before we make a drastic move. And I got to go back to CRMC and deal with this. It's just it's been tough enough for us, believe me. Like I said, it's just been objection after objection. We got through this one pretty damn good. This last objection came, I don't know, 4 months after the 30-day comment period was done. He's a nice guy, but he's just a funny guy. Someday you'll probably see him at the meeting if you make it there. But thank you for your comment.
Does anyone else have anything new to add to this before we take to a vote? Okay. Starting from the top, Ken Murgo. And actually, Anna, can you just repeat what we're voting on here?
Yeah, so The motion is to recommend to CRMC that the aquaculture activities proposed in the application is not consistent with competing uses engaged in the exploitation of marine fisheries.
Okay, and the motion was made by Mike and seconded by Jerry,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the vote here. Ken Margo,
Yay.
John McDonald,
Yay.
Dave Gigliotti,
Okay.
Ed Triano.
Yay.
Yay to say no.
Mhm. We're saying
I'm
it's
sorry,
not.
can you repeat that, Ed Triano?
Yay.
Jeff Gardner? You're muted, Jeff. Wait, unmute yourself. What? Can you repeat that? Abstain? Okay. Roger Teller?
Yay.
Mike McGivney?
Yay.
Jerry Shy?
Yay.
Okay, the motion passes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yays and 1 abstention. Jeff, would you mind muting yourself again? It's a little loud. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the next item here. And before we do that, I just want to let the applicants know that you can request to have this brought before the Marine Fisheries Council. So you can speak with Ben about that and let me know what your decision is. All right, so our third topic tonight is going to be presented by Ben, and it's going to be talking about staff involvement during the preliminary determination stage of the application process. So Ben, do you want to take over for now?
Sure, yeah. Maybe just pop that last slide up as a introduction here. All right. So this is our application review process. This is a flow chart. It's for demonstration purposes only. It has no, say, regulatory meaning in itself, but it's illustrative. So it kind of outlines the various paths of a aquaculture application in the review process. And what I want to do is kind of overview this, guys, go over this with you guys so you understand. I'm sure some of you have heard it before. I don't know how many of you have, or how long you've been on the panel, but it's good for me to go over one more time too. And what I'm going to be focusing on is the earlier phase of the application, the PD process. But so as you can see here, that's where all applications begin. All applications begin as a preliminary determination application. We call that the PD. And that is a separate application from the full 30-day public notice application. It has a different number even, which is confusing, but that's how it works. And it's set up that way because not all preliminary determination applications will proceed to a full application. At least, the process is designed to weed out applications that are incompatible with the regulatory program, with various user groups, whatever it is. It was something that was developed to really address town concerns. So in the history of the aquaculture program in Rhode Island, the CRMC is the agency with the primary jurisdiction responsibility for for permitting aquaculture. Other states are very different in that way, but it might be the town in some states or Department of Agriculture or something like that. So because the town doesn't really have jurisdiction in the coastal waters in Rhode Island, and it's really exclusively with the CRMC, we had to develop a process to reach out to the towns and bring them into our review process, so they felt like their concerns were heard and they were part of the process. And likewise, what I really wanted to say tonight is that the SAP is also part of this process. The SAP is an important stakeholder for CRMC in the review of aquaculture applications. It is statutorily required that we have your input on applications for them to proceed to the full council. But I just wanted to emphasize that that's not just a procedural requirement. We have that in the law for a reason, and that is to solicit the expertise and knowledge of the Marine Fisheries Council. So the preliminary determination is generally it's an event, it's a meeting that happens, and it's a meeting with the town. Normally, under normal circumstances, it happens at the town hall or some location within the town closest to the aquaculture application. Of course, nowadays everything is Zoom. It makes some things easier, some things harder, but basically at this meeting, myself is there, the applicant is there, whoever from the town, whoever has been designated by the town to be our point of contact for aquaculture applications will be there. Sometimes it's the town planner, sometimes it's the conservation commission, sometimes it's the harbor management commission. Every town is kind of different in that way. But Anna or someone from DEM is usually there. Oftentimes we might have more than one staff member from DEM there to speak on various issues. And as you can see in our chart, also Coast Guard, though they are notified of these, so they rarely do weigh in unless there is something of their concern for them. Army Corps of Engineers, all these aquaculture projects that are involve gear require an Army Corps permit as well. So we like to get their input early. And then non-government agencies and the fishing industry, as you can see, it says there. So, we send out, we have a list that's been developed over the years of people who get notified when a PD is being scheduled. The participation, from what I can tell in the history, is sometimes spotty from the fishing industry. I just want to reemphasize that you're always welcome to attend these meetings. If you can't attend the meeting, you're welcome to submit a written comment. That will certainly be considered at the meeting, even after the meeting. If you wanted to submit something, that's fine. And then you can see that we make recommendations to the applicant. That is the PD report. Ken, you got a question?
Yeah, I have a quick question on the preliminary determination before you go to the next thing. What is the notification process like? Because I assume that's the biggest issue with the fishing industry. I've been pretty involved in this for a while, and I don't know if I've ever got notified for a PD. I've gotten the actual application in the public notice sent to me.
Yeah, and so that's good for me to hear, because these lists I've kind of inherited, and they've been put together, I think, largely through kind of an ad hoc request from interested stakeholders. We have certain groups on there for sure, like the Saltwater Anglers Association, the Shellfishermen's Association. I don't know how those get distributed through the group or who those points of contacts are, but
yeah, I'm not in any associations. And
right. Okay. So
notified. I mean, you can add me to any list, but I think all the commercial fishing reps on this council should be added to any list as well.
Right. So what I'm going to do, and so anyways, let's just wrap up this real quick, because you can see, we make recommendations. That's a report. That's the PD report, and to me, that's an important piece of paper because it captures all the input from this process, and and I will consider any comments that come in. I'll try to capture that in the report. Whether or not I incorporate them into my own recommendations, that's not for sure, but I will definitely address it. And in that report, so what I'm proposing to the SAP really is that I will notify you guys as a group of these PDs as they come in the door. Try to get you guys to maybe submit. You can submit comments directly to me or to Katie. Some of the mechanics of this we haven't quite figured out, but then the idea would be that I would also share the report when it's written back to you guys, so that you might see a report come in that's got a favorable recommendation, maybe you tweak a few things, and you're gonna expect to maybe see that full application for the 30-day review period. One thing I'm gonna can I share my screen here? Because I wanted to. So it's funny because Anna and I were talking about this. Katie and I were talking about this. How it'd be really best to bring in the SAP and really through the SAP the wider fishing interests of the state into this process. And we were trying to figure out, well, how would we do that? What makes sense? And I ended up talking to Bob Ballou about it, and he said, "Oh, well, haven't you seen the policy document that governs the Marine Fishery Council?" And I said, "No, I hadn't seen it yet." And he sent it to me, and turns out that the policies and procedures for the SAP are outlined pretty clearly in it, and actually address the SAP's involvement in the PD. So in a way, I don't think we have to create any new process here. We can just kind of go back to the basics of what's written. And let me see if I can do this. And we can just take a quick look at the text. All right. You guys see that? Yeah.
Yep.
So these are the procedures for aquaculture review based on the Marine Fisheries the Council's own policy document. And I can share this with everybody. I think it's important. We should all rely on this document as a baseline of how we should approach these application reviews, especially when we have a question that comes up. Certain things about modifications that we discussed before that are actually addressed in here. So I think it's very helpful. But anyways, you can see CRMC receives an initial draft proposal. And that's for the preliminary determination. And these really are drafts. They're proposals. They're the first draft of an application. And it says that the Marine Fisheries Shellfish Advisory Panel chair should be involved in that meeting. So your chair is Katie Egan. We've discussed this. I've discussed this with her. She says she's willing to participate in these meetings or perhaps designate another member in her stead if she can't make them. But it also says in here, as part of the PD process, this is the second bullet point under 1, DEM and the SAP chair identify information needs and key issues to be addressed by the application in coordination with the AC. That's me, the aquaculture coordinator. So I think this is something we should really do. I will publish the PD, the application, and to you guys. I will get it to you guys even before a meeting is scheduled, so you guys can, or at least Katie can hopefully take the lead on identifying information needs and key issues to be addressed. So in a way, it gets you guys can have the opportunity to get your concerns, air them early, get the information to the applicant. I think that's really the most important thing, right? The PD is really about recommendations. So we're trying to give the applicant recommendations. Now, maybe the recommendation is this is not a good area, like not a good area at all. But provide, reasoning and some, something that we can help us digest that, help the applicant digest that information. And then you can see, aquaculture, number 2, aquaculture coordinator provides recommendations back to the applicant, drawing upon the comments provided through the PD process. DEM SAP chair remain available for consultation with the aquaculture coordinator as the applicant addresses preliminary suggested modifications to his or his lease. So that's a process that I'm willing to participate in. Outside of the formal SAP review, I think it's important that we have some communication on these applications early on, consultations and the like. And then you can see number 4, applicant submits his lease application. That's the full application, which goes to 30 days public notice, and that's distributed to all interested parties, including DEM, Marine Fisheries Council, and the SAP. And then you can see that, the chair schedule the SAP meeting, obviously. DEM often does do their own internal preliminary review of these applications. I get letters on those. I often will note if they have a problem with an application at these meetings, but if they don't, more often than not, I may fail to mention it. But yeah, and then again, the aquaculture coordinator remains available for consultation with DEM and SAP chair during the review process. So I am here and available for consultation. And it does say SAP chair, but I'm willing to talk to any SAP member. If you guys want to work through the chair, that's fine with me. But then it says in number 5, and I just bring this up because it's been an issue in the past. Upon completion of the 30-day public notice period, aquaculture coordinator coordinates with the applicant regarding public comments, any potential modifications to lease application based thereon. And then after that, the SAP meeting takes place. So as you can see, an application in its life may require potential modifications, based on public comments. And at the SAP meeting, the aquaculture coordinator addresses any preliminary modifications to the application as part of my presentation to you. So it's in my mind, this outlines a process, I think, that, or just makes more clear a process we all kind of are familiar with. But going forward, I think this document it really should serve as the cornerstone for how the SAP and the aquaculture coordinator works together to review these applications. So if you guys have any questions or comments, I'll stop my share now. And we can,
I think earlier involvement of the SAP and the PD process would be a big improvement. I personally haven't seen many of them, but I think we could work around a lot of the issues with an earlier back and forth like that. You can add the commercial fishing reps here, and the commercial fishing reps on the Marine Fisheries Council would be a good place to start in terms of notifying the commercial fishing industry of the PDs that are coming out.
Yeah, so I will do that. I will circulate it to the full membership of the council and obviously to the panel.
I was actually asked Mike in the beginning, before the aquaculture leases first started, weren't we more involved? Mike, I don't know if Mike's still here, but Dave Butel, weren't we involved early in the beginning stages, Mike?
Yeah, Jerry, I didn't want to, basically 95, when they first did the legislation, there was no preliminary determination hearing. So leases went right to public notice with the clock ticking. And we had issues, RISA had issues because we didn't have time to respond, or we found out late, and back then the communications weren't what they are. So we actually asked, it was Dave Owls back then, to change the process, and that's when the PD process started, and it was a great help. Any way Ben can get the word out, I do get the notices, but if they can get the word out to the entire SAP, hey, put it on the listserv, because over the years, over the last 25 years, we've worked with leaseholders to try to modify or move them, or like today, maybe they could have gone to a different part of that lease, just to make it easier and it's not contentious. So Ben, any way you can get the word out, like I said, there's a listserv, or certainly the SAP needs to be notified, because so many people over the years, they say, oh, I didn't know, I would have said. So, if you can avoid that, and it's kind of in the regs anyway, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, because I thought today was a little bit unfortunate that it came to this part of the process, before they found out that we had objections. If they would have known in the beginning, I think, things could have worked out a lot better than they did today.
So, yeah.
And Jerry, I know you've been involved for a long time. We've actually had points where we look at a lease and they hadn't done the evaluation of claw hogs. So we'd say we have no objections as long as the population's under 3 per meter. So we've had these issues in the past, and unfortunately, you know, we have to, if you have rules and how you know, move forward on a lease, we got to stick with them. So I think getting all the information before you have to evaluate a lease is critical to us doing a good job.
So that's exactly what I remember. I remember when Dennis was at the meetings and he was telling us that this is where he's going to go test, and there would be objections right then. I mean, that's when Owen was, you know, with us, and you know, he did a lot of shore digging, and like I said, that was I remember, you know, right from the beginning we were involved. I know Dave wasn't happy with it, you know, because he got objections right before they went to the full lease application process. And I think that's when it changed, right, Mike?
Yeah, well, it was over Dave Alves to Dave Utel. Dave Utel was somebody, and Dave Alves is good too, but he was very familiar with the fishing industry. He knew all the people, and you know, so he could actually do a lot of the groundwork prior to the PD, or just with his basic knowledge of the bay and the people he knew. So I think we probably felt a little comfortable because I believe he kind of raised some of the objections that we would have if, you know, we were there to be talking prior to us seeing the lease.
Okay, good. At some point, I've been raising my hand, I've been waiting. Listen to Zoom, you guys keep going on, and I'd like to get some words in, please. Can I have a chance? Mike and Jerry, can I speak? Thank you. On this committee representing aquaculture, I've been to, on my own lease applications, at least 4 SAP preliminary meetings, to the original meetings. I think I've been to 5. Ben, you forgot to mention, just as in the town I'm in, there's a conservation commission that gets notified. There's a fire district that gets notified. There should be the Salt Ponds Coalition. I believe they get notified. I've had issues with our town recreation department. They get notified. I've had Save the Bay show up for a Winnipeg Pond application. And the harbor masters / police are also on the list, at least for the town of Westerling. So when there's these preliminary determination meetings bring in a diverse amount of people, I've left the meeting, I've gone and compromised. I've met the head of the town recreation department on the shoreline, and assured him that I wasn't going to be affecting the kayakers by the kayak ramp they were proposing to put in, as an example. So I think the process works pretty well. The biggest problem I've had is with DEM. They sent a representative, and I don't think you've been to one of them, but of mine. But I'm going to give an example, not hopefully getting in trouble, but DEM will say at the preliminary determination meeting that they approve, they don't have issues, and then halfway through the process, the DEM bird people will come out and say, oh, wait a minute, oh, wait a minute, oh, wait a minute. And I've already worked out, as an example myself, worked out a compromise with the other town, the other people that attended the meeting, and suddenly these people that weren't at the meeting, and the clock is tick, 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 ticking, and all of a sudden there's this brand new, you know, curmudgeon that just shows up. And that gets very frustrating. I've learned to deal with it. And one of the things that Ben just showed in that DEM document was 30 days, 20 days, 10 days, forget about it. Just throw that right out the window. Everybody's trying their best. They're trying their best, but it doesn't happen that way. If you do look at the numbers, maybe an application could go in through the whole process in, I'm guessing, 3 months, 90 days. And then look at your average application is more around a year. And that's because you try and reach at the preliminary determination meeting. Who's got issues? What can we do? I've been to CRMC, the council meetings, and I've been sent back. Can you compromise with this guy, Jeff? Sure. Let me go meet with him again. And the guy doesn't compromise. So I think the process works. More people need to be involved. And the time frame that is written down is semi-irrelevant because it just doesn't really happen. But I think the process is good. It just needs a little more participation. information. Katie, I don't think should be the only person involved. Katie, you can get me, you can email me. I kind of volunteer to help. But my comments are really, it's a working document. It's not all written in DEM legislative relations. It doesn't work that way. And I think it has been working, and I think Ben's going to do a good job. Thanks for letting me go, Jerry. Thanks for letting me go, Mike. I got my words in. Thanks. Merry Christmas, too.
Yeah, fix your phone.
Yeah, it was so late, I couldn't hear what you said.
Well, I mean, the document is from 2009, so those policies were probably put in place right at the end of Dave Alves' tenure, is my guess, before Dave Udell took over. So it's, you know, I think it's pretty clear in there, and it does, you know, it really is, I think, up to, you know, the forum is there for the participation, and it's in, you know, it's definitely welcomed and invited at this level. But it does require participation, and I think that's a good point that I think I got from Jeff's.
I have a quick question, if I may. Most of the commercial group is represented, and we get notified. I get notified of certain things going along. But the one thing that I always kind of wonder about is how do we get the word out for the recreational folks, like this last one point, you know, case in point. You know, that this is a recreational area, and of course we have a guy that's on recreation. I get it, but how do you get the word out to recreation? Do you put it in the Providence Journal? Do you put it online? Do you how does that happen?
It's a really good question, and it gets to, it goes to those regular channels. It gets posted on our website. It gets, you know, it goes out to the, but I don't have a point of contact for recreational shell fishing like I would for the commercial bull rakers, say. So it is a challenge.
Yeah, because
and it is why we do rely on, yeah, it was why we rely on the SAP, you know, and for the SAP to have recreational shell fishing represented. You know, it's part of the knowledge base that we rely on from you guys.
So no. So my point is this, though, and it has nothing to do with what you're doing. Maybe I'm just saying maybe we could tighten that piece up, because a lot of times, whether the application is in one of the ponds or it's in a place like this, we're talking about various points in the bay. Recreation is just John Q. Public, right? And you know, this is something that I always kind of wondered about, because a lot of times some of the leases that have gone through, and they'll say, well, it's in 3 feet of water or what have you. Well, that's nice short sticking water or whatever. I'm saying, well, okay, the people that live in the area, were they notified? How were they notified? To have a guy on the SAP that's the recreational, you know, spokesperson is great, but I think that one is the loosest part of it, because again, if I take my family down to a point in the beach that all of a sudden has just been taken over with aquaculture, and I never got notified, would I have a recourse? That kind of a thing, when maybe I could have voiced my opinion early on. So how could we tighten up that end is what I'm asking, or is that a possibility of looking into that? Because I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle, to be honest with you.
I like the second. I
Yeah.
think that's a problem we have commercially and recreationally, just getting the word out. I mean, there's a lot of fishermen and recreational and commercial who haven't seen these applications before they go through and the gear starts popping up.
Yeah. I mean, my only, you know, I'm just thinking about this out loud right now, but, you know, the Sea Grant is responsible largely for the data that was collected for the recreational shellfishing layer in the DEM marine fisheries map. And that was done through, you know, the shellfish management plan, which was, you know, very broad outreach type effort to collect information from the public about shell fishing and things like that. I don't know if they maintain an email list for people who are interested, who were interested in the shellfish management plan. I mean, this is something I might be able to talk to Sea Grant and Azure about, but that might be one possible channel, given that they did do so much outreach to the recreational shellfishing public that they must have gathered some contact information through that process. Is just kind of where my mind's going with that right now. Other than that, I'm certainly open to any other ideas. And I do agree, it's a little bit of a blind spot and it's hard to address.
I actually, I'm involved with the Harbor Commission in Bristol, and we've had some come up there, and they have a good email chain. There's quite a few people on it that, get contacted at least. So it's a good way to show, get the word out there. And quite a few of the towns have a Harbor Commission and stuff now. Some don't, but I've been to one in Portsmouth, with a lease that we had to go contest and, talk to the guy and just say, hey, this would be better suited to be over here instead of where you want it, things like that. So that's a good avenue, at least, to get that out there, notify more people.
Yeah, and I think I have found working with harbor commissions at the PD level, often you get better input and information. They just have more local knowledge of the waters. I find compared to maybe the town planner or something like that.
Yeah, no
I second that.
But not all towns work with the harbor, management or have a commission even. But those that do those are usually the town bodies that I'm dealing with. I mean, certainly, in Point Judith and Tiverton and those other areas.
Hey, Ben, I would think that most of the towns would cooperate with providing some type of public notice, whether it be on the town website, at the town hall, or both. Again, so you're certainly not going to reach everyone, but you're going to reach a significant portion of probably the residents in that town that would certainly have an interest in the recreational aspect.
Yeah, so in days past, before everything kind of moved on to the email, electronic platform, we did mail letters to like the town clerks, and those letters were posted, on bulletin boards or hallways or somewhere in the community. Clearly, we can't really rely on that as much, particularly during these times. But yeah, no, I do rely on the towns to try to get the word out to potential stakeholder groups that they may have knowledge of.
Right. Most of the towns will also have public notices on their websites as well, so you wouldn't have to rely strictly on them putting up a hard copy in the town hall.
Yeah, and actually, I have to recognize the aquaculture page on the CRMC website is a little lacking. It has all the application forms you'd want, but I am going to look into seeing if I can maintain a small public notice window or something within the CRMC website, so if people are wondering what's happening with aquaculture, they could find it easily. That is something I'm working on. I'm not quite sure the feasibility of it yet, but it seems like it should be possible.
Ben, do you plan on having the site assessment done for the PD, or because I mean this, having the SAP involvement at an early level would address a lot of things, but today's issue may not have been addressed, and would you plan on having that information available at the PD?
Yeah. Sorry if I'm freezing, or can you guys still hear me? Okay. Yeah, so ideally, the survey would be done before the PD meeting. That is something I'm going to try my best to maintain. Especially if I can do it within some favorable weather. If I get an application in the middle of February, it may be a while until I can get those results in. In which case, I understand if the panel wants to make tentative comments that they may not object as long as it's under 3 cohogs. That works for me. I certainly would come back and share the results with you as soon as I had them. I have been able to, going forward, do most of these surveys up front during at the PD level. It's something I will always try to do because I believe it does make for a better meeting to have that information, especially for any fishermen who might be interested in the application.
If I could give a compliment to DEM. Before my last preliminary meeting, they provided me with maps of where they thought this was okay. There was they provided the applicant before the preliminary meeting with what their objections or their problems would be with physical maps. That was very, very important for me to be able to alter, to find new ground, like the second applicant today. If we had gotten that together, like how about this spot or that spot, it might have gone a lot smoother. So that's one of those things that where the more the agencies can provide to the applicant before they go to the town hall and meet with everybody and say, well, look, I can go here. Oh, wait a minute, I have friends that go there clamming all the time. Oh, I can go here. Well, I go hunting here. Well, how about this spot? Everybody says okay. That kind of works. It's just application by application.
So I just want to provide some feedback on that. Since I've taken over this role, I've really encouraged applicants and worked with them to help map out their sites, and especially to allow them to have access to any of the information that we base our decisions upon for their applications. Because we want to do the same thing. We don't want to, we want to help them through the process and provide them feedback as early on as possible. So, and part of that process is I've been doing a lot of the mapping for them, and then they can use those maps in their applications to assist them as much as possible. And so we've just been trying to make it more and more aware to applicants. Ben will send them my way if they have questions, and then they'll ask me for assistance in mapping and working out their placement and everything. So we're really trying to improve on that front. So I appreciate that comment.
Ben, I have a comment to make.
Yes.
I'm a member of the RZA group, and there's a lot of rod and reelers in there, but there's also a lot of guys who recreational shellfish. If you could send those preliminary notices to RZA, I think you do it now with the applications where they come 30-day notice. If you can send it to them on a preliminary basis, when that preliminary determination is going to happen, they can get more word out to the group of people to give them a little extra time to pass the word around of what's coming up.
Yeah, I agree. I believe we do have some members of RISA on the PD list. I'm going to have to go through and double check, exactly who these contacts are, make sure I have the right people, or if there are other people that should be included. I actually was approached by the Anglers Association to have a short call with them to introduce myself. That's yet to be scheduled, but I'm going to be essentially making a similar presentation to what I did tonight. Letting the group know that they are welcome to participate at this level and to make sure they're being notified as efficiently as possible. Yeah.
Mike McGivney, if you're still on the call, I was wondering, do you send out the PD notices to your members on the Shellfish Fishermen's Association?
Currently, where we haven't, but that's a good suggestion. We just recently started doing a waterfront email chain. So I'll talk to Bruce about. I'll forward the notifications to him and get that on that list also. Good idea.
Anna, would it be possible for you and Ben maybe to send what he just shared screen, that the regulation or whatever it is for the rules for the SAP's involvement? Can you send that out to all of the SAP members? And then maybe would it also be possible to make sure that all of the SAP members can get the PD notices, just so they, have the opportunity to reach out to me or do their own type of communication with Ben.
Yeah,
Just
so I will make sure to send out that flow chart and the procedures for the SAP.
I just put in the chat box the link to the Marine Fisheries Policy document. It's on the DM website on the Marine Fisheries page. So I just snuck in that link there. I'll take you directly to the PDF. And I'll create an email list just for the SAP going forward, and I'll just I'll make sure that you guys. I'll send you an email from me with the saying, hey, here is a PD coming, so you won't get lost on a big long generic email list that goes out to the wider public. I mean, it'd be really helpful for me if you all representing your various groups could be a point of contact for me with your groups. So when I do distribute that to you, you can forward it to your president or whoever handles membership communications. That would be helpful as I try to flesh out our contact lists here. So
put it on the listserv.
On the DEM listserv. Yeah,
I mean that covers a lot of people in various aspects of the fishery. So I think that's just, if you want to get the information out, that's the biggest email that I know of. So
being in CRMC, but I'd be interested in hearing if that's possible. If I could do that in coordination with Anna and DEM. Yeah.
That'd be great.
And I just want to make a point. I mean, the SAP, it has a major role in this process. And I just want, when I bring, what we have decided or voted on to the Marine Fisheries Council, I just want us to be as well-rounded and not legitimate, but I just want us to have our voice to be as strong as possible, because that clears up any confusion. And we represent so much that having everyone involved and everyone on the same page, it just goes so much farther when we're trying to come up, hash it out at the council level. So
I just want to add, you're right, Katie, but we have blind spots like the ponds. There's just not enough guys that are fishing there. So, hopefully they're on that listserv and they can get the word out. But we do have some weak spots, in the bay and the various areas that, not that many people participate in the SAP. So it's a great idea to get the word out to everybody.
Yeah, and having us on the list and putting this on the listserv, it just, people will be able to reach out to us and know that we are their point people for, if they have any concerns about these applications.
Good idea.
So I would just like to say, moving forward, Ben, I know you have some PDs that are going to be coming up, and we had discussed in stating this as our common procedure. So what we can do is move ahead and get everyone on the notification list for upcoming PDs, and those will be sent over to all of you directly. And then we would have everyone either submit written comments to Katie If Katie can't attend the PD, have someone else as a point person to attend the PD, or just submit all of those comments directly to Ben. How does that sound?
That sounds fine by me.
So I think that, and if you don't have comments, that's okay, but we're just wanting to improve this process so that these applicants can have feedback at an earlier stage. And so I think, this will start occurring before our next SAP meeting. So I know it's a lot of weight on Katie to do this, and I'm happy to help out in any way that I can, especially as we get going with this new process. So if you have questions regarding this new process, just feel free to email Katie or I or Ben with anything.
Yeah, Anna, if I may, also to let everybody know, the CRMC is doing an Narragansett Bay SAMP plan. Currently, because of COVID and everything, they've pretty much been concentrating on running the cable in from the offshore wind, turbines in the best route for that, and that's their original start of the process. But part of the process going forward, we've been told, and we have a letter to prove it, is that they're going to start working on evaluating Narragansett Bay, and my group is that we can start identifying areas that are critical to the wild shell fishermen and other recreational people, and literally put areas that really help to identify and direct aquaculture people so we can avoid the conflicts even before the conflicts start. So it's been a 2-year process, and we haven't got to the part that we're really hoping for yet for several reasons, but we're looking forward to, in the next year or two, to start working on that process, and that will involve a lot of stakeholders and all that stuff, but that will make it easier going forward to kind of maybe make areas that we don't have to worry about, off limits, or, recommend areas for aquaculture and make the process easier for everyone.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And I would say, while CRMC is working towards that goal, the process that we have here, I think does work. There's certainly areas in Narragansett Bay and in most bodies of water throughout Rhode Island that are too conflicted to support aquaculture. I mean, that's just a fact. They're out there. This process is designed to weed out applications that are proposed for exactly those types of areas. Would it save time to have that kind of predetermined, at least to some extent? Yeah, maybe. It might. But there is also a restriction on lease size in what we call the upper Narragansett Bay by CRMC regulation. So this isn't a colloquial, a common notion of the upper bay, but the CRMC upper bay is basically about Quonset Point north. I think so. Maybe the southern tip of Prudence. All points north of that, you're limited to a 2-acre first application on a lease, and then you could subsequently apply for a 3rd acre once you've built that 2 acres out. So there is a little bit of a restriction on at least lease size for what we call the upper Narragansett Bay. But that's not to say that there couldn't be more that could be learned from an aquaculture SAM process.
Well, I can tell you, Ben, I don't think you were involved earlier, but, we had one that was opposed to by every step of the process: SAP, Marine Fishery Council, Harbor Commission, and we still had to go up there on a Friday night or a Tuesday night or whatever it is and sit for 4 hours, with 10 or 15 fishermen to object to something that everybody had objected to. And by luck of the draw, we prevailed, but it was a very close vote. So what we're saying is, it'd be a lot easier if everybody can agree on areas that just aren't suitable for it, and that stops the process. But the process as it is now never gets stopped. It goes to the end. It might turn out right, as it has in the past, but it still makes everybody, right to the end have to fight it, and that can cause conflict within the fishing groups and the applicants and stuff. So any way to avoid that would be positive.
I hear you. I agree.
All right, great. Well, thanks for presenting that, Ben. And, I hope this is a good positive step forward in this process. And, again, if anyone has any questions, just reach out to us and, we're here to help.
Yep. Good idea, Ben.
All right.
No problem.
Any final comments?
Not for this, but thanks, Ben.
Welcome.
Merry Christmas to all.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Are we not adjourning, right? I have one.
Oh, no, we have more to talk about, Jerry.
Okay. I'm muting again. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, so on to any other matters. Sorry, my screen got all messed up. Is this in presenting mode to everyone, or does it look like? Can't get it to stay in presenting mode. All right. We'll just keep it like that. So does anyone have any other matters that they'd like to bring up?
Yes, I do, and I think Jerry's probably on the same page on this one. I talked to Connor last week. I'd really like to start the process in the new year about talking about what we want to do with the Upper Bay. We had the transplant out of there successfully, and I believe water quality has turned that to conditional. Connor was going to double check that, but I believe they have. So I'd really like, going into the new year, start discussing. It's so difficult trying to plan with the COVID and everything, but hopefully we can look far enough into the future, into the summer, where we could talk about how or if we want to open that area. I know the industry really could use a shot in the arm, and hopefully the dealers and everyone, the demand will be there come June, July. So I ask that, going forward, we start talking about what DEM recommends and what the fishermen want to do with that area.
Yeah, so during the transplant, I collected a bunch of data on harvest rates, and am in the process of analyzing that to come up with a management plan for harvest in the Providence River, Lower Providence River. And so my plan is to present that data and information during our next SAP meeting, which I would say we could probably look to plan for. We have a couple other items coming up, so we could probably plan for sometime in February or March, and we can go over the proposed management of Lower Providence River. We would probably want to pull in water resources in that discussion too, since they are the ones who have done the classification for that area. But at this point, I need to finish running the model to determine the harvest rates. But we got a lot of good information from that transplant, which was really, really vital in this process.
To that end, Anna, all I ask is that we begin the process with the idea that we have enough regulatory time, which would be the Marine Fishery Council, the the director, the going out to public notice, all the things that need to be done to get something scheduled. We do it in a timely fashion so we don't find ourselves behind the 8 ball and not be able to, if we do want to open it, in a timely manner and hopefully for the summer, if things trend hopefully the way we want them to go.
Okay. I will make note of the request to aim for early summer for opening.
That was one of the proposals we put forward. It was basically the 3rd week in June. We were targeting. That's right around Father's Day. And so, yes, certainly for the summer months.
Okay.
Yeah, with a March SAP meeting, I don't think that's enough time. Do you?
No, that would not be enough time. I will need to backtrack the dates to figure out the timing of that, but that would push us. We would probably need to meet again sometime in January or early February. And I would have to look at the schedule for Marine Fisheries Council meeting too, to make sure that we line up with a council meeting. I have to look at those dates to make sure that it would line up with the proper council meeting to give us enough time moving forward. So I will look into all of that and figure out what the dates would need to be to make that move forward.
Good.
And thank you. And also, I mean, can we send a notice twice to water quality? Sorry, I had to say.
And have a better phone. Oh, sorry. A long meeting.
Yes. All right. Yes. So you'll be hearing from me then sometime in the upcoming weeks about figuring out the next stop meeting so we can get this on the agenda.
I do have a serious question about water quality. When you send a notice, do you send it just to, I forgot her name, but do you send it to Angelo as well? I forget the woman that's in the...
Oh, Cindy Hannes?
Yeah, do you send it just to her or do you send it to Angelo as well?
So she's the one in charge. They're the ones that send out any water quality notifications.
No, I meant when you notify them as to what your plans are.
Oh, it's both of them.
Okay, thank you.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, Dave Borkman too, I think, is involved.
Yep, he is. Yep, the 3 of them are in communication about that with us.
On a good day.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Not on this, on anything else? Mike, you ready?
Keep your fingers crossed on the water, on rain this week.
It's just that there's been some chat, Mike, as far as the dealers. I know you're plugged in with your brothers, but after Christmas, if this thing continues to open, it's only going to hurt the guys that work every day. Is there any way of monitoring that and just like sealing off that triangle, and leave Greenwich open and for the next year, because it's all pandemic related. The market is getting killed. They're closing all the restaurants, and we just but the guys that don't work every day will be okay. But the guys that have to work every day, there won't be any market at all. And even if they can go out, there may not even be a place to sell. Unless
unfortunately, what I understand is that December is the only time that the director can intercede on the schedule without having any kind of emergency powers. But I would guess that if we went through Katie and through my association and whatever, and we petitioned the director to modify the scheduling because of the pandemic and the markets, that she could interact on that, or not interact. She could do something about it.
Yeah, I just thought we'd bring it up for discussion because, you know, when the crap hits the fan, there's still guys that need to make a living. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's always been the case, and that area has always been, you know, been part of the problem is you don't get it till January, and that's when the dealers don't need the stuff. But let's see how it goes. If we get a solid week next week, my guess is a lot of that stuff that we planted, you know, will be gone to market, hopefully, with the New Year's. But certainly any kind of market disruption because of the pandemic and because of a management area, that can be addressed.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought maybe they could be an emergency, you know, measures. And because it's such a, you know, small area, it's already designated. We don't have to lose Greenwich in case anything ever did happen.
Well, I don't know about exactly if you can break it up like that, but that's certainly something we could explore.
Well, it's already broken up, Mike, because if they didn't get the 10 days free, you know, free from rain, you're going to open, just leave that area closed. It does have its designation already.
Actually, I don't think it was ever designated. I think it was the potential to designate it was there because it was a separate area, but I don't think the designation was ever made. But
Okay.
I don't want to argue semantics. You know, semantics. You're right that if there's a problem there, we need to address it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, Jerry and Mike, just keep in contact with me, you know, in the next couple of weeks. We'll see what the next steps should be as things move on.
Yeah, just so you know, when we did this before, which we have, we used your position, Katie, to kind of bring it forward for us. That was, you know, the idea that you bring it forward to the Fish and Wildlife, and you know, and you were the person to kind of, not that other groups can't, you know, chime in and recommend things, but we kind of used the chairperson of the SAP to move the thoughts. And I think Jody actually did a poll. You know, he called each member of the SAP to get them to, you know, either support or not support any changes to it. So with that as a background, maybe that's something, you know, if we do want to make a change, that, you know, you'd be the point person on that, with help from others.
Yeah, Katie, I was actually going to call you today, but because it just came to a head, but I figured we're having the meeting tonight, and I could just we could chat about it now, and then, you know, if it ever did go to something, because I just talked to 2 dealers today, and they had some reservations, talking about, you know, big price drop and maybe even going on the limit, you know, after the first of the year, if they're going to have any shellfish coming in.
Yep. Yeah, I've been hearing the same thing from our dealer. So we'll have to talk about this more.
Thank you.
All right. Well, anything else?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thanks, you too.
Happy 2021.
We're still going to make it.
Good meeting, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.